Welcome back to Monster in My Closet, the podcast where we shine a light on the professional world's darker corners. I'm Anil Saxena, joined by my co-host, the founder of Medusas, Morgan Hunter. Each episode, we tackle the fears and faux pas that haunt our work lives, with insights, interviews, and a dash of humor, some stupid analogies, and probably swearing. So if you've ever felt like you're navigating a workplace labyrinth, a never-ending approval process, an evil hall of mirrors, or a constantly ending quarter, you're in the right place. Let's confront those monsters together. Are you ready? Let's begin. Welcome back to another episode of Monster in My Closet. Morgan, this week, are we scared or scary?
We're scary.
Scary.
Mistakes will be made.
And amplified. All right, so today we're going to ask you to tread carefully through the shadowy path of glory hogs and blame shifters. Learn the importance of shining together and how sharing the spotlight can dispel the darkness of workplace resentment. So the three big things we're going to cover today. First, the importance of accountability and recognition in team dynamics. Second, the consequences of taking undue credit or shifting blame in a leadership role. And third, building a culture of shared success and responsibility. So we're calling this episode, What's Mine is Yours, Unless It Sucks. So Morgan, what's the genesis here? Why are we talking about this today?
Because I personally get rankled when I work hard and other people take credit for it, or the flip side, and unless something goes bad and then they dumpster fire on you. And, for the life of me, I really want to believe that people are inherently good, and if I work hard, I'm going to get proper credit. But that's just not been my reality. I think, when we look at employee feedback and engagement results just around the world, this idea of getting credit for your work or not being blamed when something goes wrong that was out of your control, I really think that leads to a lot of dissatisfaction with employees. And I don't understand. To me, it just seems so easy, but it must be tougher than we're imagining because it still happens on the daily. Right?
Yeah. It's a little bit of that whole notion of the golden rule or whatever other kind of nomenclature you want to, right? It's like do unto others as you want them to do to you or whatever it says. Just like be a good person. Don't do shitty things. Don't take credit for something that isn't yours. Don't blame people where you should take the blame. And I think it goes back to this notion of like acknowledging or recognizing work is super important when you're building a culture, whether it's a team culture or it's an organizational culture. And it kind of underlines or showcases what you want to see like more good behavior. Giving credit is really important. It gives people the satisfaction of a job well done and input on shaping the future of the organization or the kind of underlying of the organization. So, sorry. No, what I was going to say was it just makes me think of there was a job that I had and there was this guy, we'll call him Chad. And if your name is Chad, I'm sorry, unless I'm talking about you. And he asked me to write this presentation for him or with him. And then I found out that he delivered that presentation without me. And and without me knowing, and he took the credit.
Nice.
And he got kudos for giving that presentation, and he never acknowledged me. And then in front of everybody else, he berated me about some deadline I missed because I was working on that presentation for him. So I guess the moral of the story is don't be like Chad. I think it's a good, it's just a good reminiscence of what not to do and how that breeds miscontent in an organization or discontent.
Yeah. And I think when I look at this, just human to human first, and then I'll look at it from leadership to what your responsibilities are. most people don't show up to work just for a fucking paycheck, right? Right? Most people want to get some feeling of satisfaction from the work they're doing. And I think the harder you work, the more you expect some level of satisfaction. That can mean different things to different people. I have fulfilling work, or I did something hard and I pulled it off, like whatever the satisfaction thing is. But when you take credit for someone else's work, you're robbing them of that payoff, right? The non-financial payoff of work. And it just feels like being robbed at the end of the day is the feeling I get when someone else takes credit for my work. From a leadership perspective, the thing that fascinates me, there's a few things. There's leaders taking credit for their employees' work, and I don't know, in order to make themselves look better. And there's also leaders who let people take credit for other people's work and they don't intervene. So there's like two models there that really rankle me. Because I feel like as a leader, I can share someone's work and give them full credit and still get that awesome feeling that I had something to do with that. Like, I don't have to call it my own. I can say, look at this thing my team's made. It's so freaking awesome, isn't it? Yeah, that's my team. Yay, me. So I don't ever understand why people just, like in your example, why they could not give shared credit or any credit.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah, I don't understand it, because I think that as a leader, it's your job a lot of times to accept blame and give credit, right? So you're really making sure that you're giving a wide berth for people to grow and innovate and really showcase the great work that you're doing. And as a leader, generally speaking, you're developing that person or helping them develop. You hire that person, you're promoting that person. And so if they're doing great work, that is a natural reflection of you as a leader.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. Yeah. And I think there's another more subtle example that I would use for leaders. I'm going to go meet with my SVP. Can you please give me the presentation you developed so I can present it to the SVP? How does that make you feel, Emil?
It makes me concerned, right? Like, are you going to showcase that in the light that it needs to be? Do you have all the context? Why are you doing that? I think that's like
it feels kind of icky for me too, and I think it really sets up an opportunity for the person to be misrepresented. I feel like, so if we can give advice to our listeners in a situation like that, presenting your employee's work to a senior person to you is an excellent opportunity to give them a perk by actually doing the presentation. Yeah. Bring them to the meeting, let them present the data or whatever it is. And, if you need them to jump off the call after that or whatever, like just give them some airtime. And I think that there are some leaders that get nervous, like, what if someone fucks up? What if they fuck up? Who cares? Who cares? That is how you learn to get better, right? If someone's really tough and they're going to ask you a lot of hard questions and third degree you, that's okay, because that is how you learn to handle that type of questioning as a professional. I would say not only don't take someone's presentation and present it to senior leadership, but at any time possible, put your people forward and let them do the presentations of their own work. If you're not able to do that, let's say you're in some super secret meetings and there's so many, it's like, no, if you don't have a VP in your title, you can't be in the room. I understand, Florida. But if that is the case, then at the beginning of the presentation or whatever the thing is, it needs to have Anil's name. This is how you start the presentation. I'm presenting to you today the work of fill in the name, blah, 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 who is responsible for X. Let's move on, right? You set it up and then you bookend it on the back end. Yeah, Anil's my expert. So if you have any detailed questions that you need, I'd like to pull that person in, or I'd like to have a follow-up so they can answer those questions for you directly. So that's just one real world example of how you could do things differently as a leader. And Anil, do you have any experiences in your life where you could give some advice about how to handle something differently as a leader?
I think there's a couple of instances. One is that, and this is something that you and I experienced, Morgan, that you created this thing, the business matrix. Then, as a team, we actually kind of developed all of the underlying parts and pieces of it, and so it was a great example of, well, you created the idea, and we created the content. And so at the end of the day, it was ours. And
Yeah.
I think it was really powerful to be able to showcase the impact that we all made on that. And everybody got the right amount of credit and the right amount of recognition. I think that when you as a leader try to kind of quote unquote shelter your folks from hard conversations or difficult situations, you're not really allowing them to grow. And so this is an important way, this idea of foisting people into the spotlight to give them credit for good work, that gives them the satisfaction of a job well done, but it also gives them the opportunity to see, like you said, what does it take to have a conversation with a group of people who are leaders or who might be tough on me. And that business matrix to me was such a great way to introduce all of us into the organization, to highlight, like, hey, this is the great work that we're doing. You made you made good hires, right? You hired smart people. I mean, I'm patting myself on the back a little bit, but it's true, right? I think that that's the work of the leader. If you don't hire people that are as good or better than you are, that's not a good sign, right? You have to be willing to let your folks in front of others and give them the recognition that they deserve.
Well, honestly, I get terrified if I feel like I'm the smartest person in the room. That makes me really scared.
Yeah.
It's a lot of responsibility to be room mom, right? And like be the only adult in the room. So I want to hire people that are freaking brilliant, right?
Yeah.
That can do my job in a second if I needed them to. That's what I want my team to look like. So in terms of, let's say something goes wrong. You did something or someone else did something, and now it's like we're getting into the what's yours is mine unless it sucks, right? So I want to pick your brain a little bit about what is the responsibility of a leader when something goes wrong, right? Maybe it's not the leader that screwed it up, but something went wrong. What would be the desired behavior?
I would say that it is all Anil's fault and he is a horrible person and we should probably stone him or give him a super wedgie, an atomic wedgie. But that we're not Chad. Don't be like Chad. So I'll give you an example from it's relatively recent. So we rolled out this big training initiative and a program that we were selling. And there was somebody on the team who was working with a partner who was misusing some of the entitlements, and they were trying to get it corrected. It was the end of the year and they were sending out emails to every brother, right? They were CCing the world. And I stepped in and I said, hey, let's stop this for right now. I talked to that individual and I said, separately, this is not the right way to handle that, right? Let's have that conversation on how we do it. to the broader group that they CC'd, which was, I don't know, like 150 leaders. I said,
Yeah.
you know what? That is my bad. I did not make sure that that individual knew the protocols on how we were going to deal with this situation. And
Yes.
we are going to
Yes.
correct that. I'm having that conversation. I'm talking to the partner about that. And this is how we're going to handle it in the future. But know that we are managing it and everything is a-okay. And
Yeah.
on one hand, that could have been like, well, Neil fell on his sword and then everybody just jumped on him. That would have been, one thing that, but because we don't have a culture where that happens, I actually got a couple of emails from senior leaders that said, thank you for stepping up. And I think that's just a really good example of, as a leader, you have to make sure that you're giving credit where credit's due. And then when a mistake is made, that you showcase real leadership by ensuring that that person understands what was done wrong, but isn't stifled by it, and correct it for the long haul.
Yeah. It's funny that you said fall on your sword, because I literally have a note here. It says, I fall on my sword. I have done that my entire career. I feel like it is the easiest way to handle a fucked up situation.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't matter how it happened, who did it, whatever. It's like, I recognize this situation. I know it's not right. I'm going to correct it. Here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, you have an opportunity on the back end for coaching with your employees or whatever, but I don't make excuses. I don't finger point. I just say, yeah, that was a mistake. We're going to do it this way. and you just work it out. Because no one benefits otherwise. You end up just getting 300 more emails on that same topic. And now
you're not solving the problem, and nobody's growing from that, right? I mean, I think it's even if you take it from a personal aspect, right? When I make a mistake at home, and Cherie points it out, right? Of course, because I am a man, I get defensive first because I am a child. And
yes,
right, that's the truth. I'm sure Sean does the same thing.
I do too.
And but very quickly I realize that she's right, like most of the time. And I correct the mistake. And then I actually say to her, like, you were right. This is what I'm going to do next time. And hopefully I learn from that. Now I make more mistakes, but I don't try not to make that mistake again. And I think that's the critical thing here, that when you take credit for someone else's work, that actually stifles innovation. So it actually undermines people's willingness to do things that are new, different, or challenging, because if it's a good idea, you're going to steal it. If it's a bad idea, they're going to get thrown under the bus, and then the bus is going to get backed up over them, right, over and over again. So that's not the kind of culture you want to create as a small organization or as a team within a larger organization, because then you don't do cool things. You don't solve big problems.
Right. I do want to recognize the reality of a situation, that when things go wrong, I mean, I fall on my sword. I'm awesome. I'm normally not smiling when I do it. And there have been times when very big mistakes have been made, where one or more people's jobs might possibly be on the line, and maybe one of those jobs is my own. Right. So it is very hard to do the deed that we're talking about when you're in that situation. You're like a high fear level, right? So you're coming from a place of fear. If you're a perfectionist, you're coming from a place like I felt like I failed and I feel exposed, and I might lose my job, my income, all of that other stuff. So you have all of these horrible feelings, and what we're doing is asking people to be, yeah, no problem, we got that, we'll fix that. So that part is actually really, really hard. That part of getting to a space where you can respond, especially if like God and everybody is on the email chain. You got senior VPs from 3 different companies or whatever on the email chain. But I want to say that we are blessed to have artificial intelligence these days, because when I have to write a letter like that, I just talk to my like Chat GPT and I say, look, I don't have to name names. I'm like, here's my situation. This person made a mistake. I want to keep them whole. There's a lot of VPs on this email chain, and here's the outcome I'm trying to get to. Right? Can you help me? And you know what? Every time they write a professional email that doesn't hurt any. So if you are having trouble getting out of the emotional state of having to cover for a mistake for the benefit of the team, I do encourage you to use AI. And if you're not comfortable using AI, then talk to a friend. Like Anil, I know you and we would bounce stuff off each other all the time when we're working together and say, hey, is this email going to get me fired? Is this email going to...
That's a good bar to set for this activity or action going to get me fired. I think the other thing is, we are lucky to be able to have a tool like that. I think the other thing is that sometimes when a mistake is made, you can acknowledge the mistake and put forth a go forward plan without identifying anything else, and then come back later once you've kind of peeled back the onion or repealed the onion. I don't know what would happen in that instance, but I think that there are times where you just need to move forward. So sometimes it's a good idea to just say, hey, let's stop the conversation where we're at. Here's the actions we need to take to move forward. And let's get those in motion. Once those are in motion, you can come back later and acknowledge what happened.
Yeah, I think another thing you can do, and I'm getting re-traumatized about these big email explosions where everybody is like full of hate. It takes a moment to come up with a plan and like get in the right headspace. If the emails are like hitting my inbox every 30 seconds, I'll send out a pause email. It's like, I see the problem. I understand the gravity of this problem. I am putting together a plan. I will reply to this email chain in 30 minutes with that plan. Like, so they know, and it's going to be taken care of, but you just need a moment to like organize everything and deal with some stuff. So again, just recognizing that it is difficult in those situations to be an adult and do the right thing, but there's some techniques you can use.
Absolutely. And I think that there's good techniques too when somebody is a credit stealer, and what you can do to kind of rectify that situation. There's actually a really great article in the Harvard Business Review. It's written by Karen Gallo, giving credit where credit's due, right? And it comes from the research from Brian Uzi, who's a professor of leadership and organizational change at Northwestern, the Kellogg School of Management. He built out this kind of whole process and some steps to take. I would highly recommend that people read that article. It's very short, or you could have AI read it and summarize it for you, if that's what you want to do. But I think there's the underlying kind of premise of that is it gives you a model for good credit sharing, right? So, oftentimes in organizations, no one person does a thing entirely on their own. Well, it takes a village, right? Usually, or a group, or a cadre, or a murder if you're a bunch of crows. But you have to, right? So I think that's a good article. It's a really easy way to think about how to share credit. Let's wrap up today, right? And talk about a couple things. So for our fearless listeners, I think 2 requests for you. One is that we ask that you please consider donating to our fundraiser at medusas.org. We're building a community to make SaaS more inclusive and all around better for everyone. So we need your help doing that. So there is a link in the show notes. Please consider donating. And then the other is that if you like what you're hearing, or maybe if you don't, right, please rate, review and share this podcast. Your personal recommendation means a lot to the peeps in your life. It means a lot to us too, because we like you. So if you could do that, that would be outstanding. So Morgan, any kind of last words about this notion of sharing credit and blame when appropriate?
Yeah, I think to summarize it, just always give credit where credit is due. Make it a habit. You'll find it is a habit, and you can create a situation where you always remember because you always do it. Even if it's your first slide or first thing you say in every email or whatever. So create a habit of giving credit. And then on the flip side of that, take responsibility when things go wrong, right? And give your team cover and work it out in the background when you need to through coaching tools, etc.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of Monster in My Closet. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
As we wrap up another episode here at Monster in My Closet, we want to thank you, our fearless listeners, for joining us on this journey of exploring what scares us or when we're scary. Professionally, of course. Together, we've ventured deep into the workplace wilderness armed with humor, insights, and a touch of irreverence, and hopefully learned something together along the way. But our journey doesn't end here. Monster in My Closet is proud to be part of Medusas.org. Medusas is a membership-driven, non-profit organization serving underrepresented groups, minorities, and individuals with disabilities who are doing business in the software-as-a-service space. We're a community created by SaaS professionals, for SaaS professionals, and even the SaaS curious. Visit Medusas.org to discover how you can contribute to a movement that empowers professionals to face their workplace monsters head-on. Don't forget to subscribe, share with your colleagues, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us shine a light on the monsters lurking in the professional closet, making our community braver, stronger, and a little bit wiser. Until next time, keep challenging the status quo, embrace the journey, and remember, no monster is too big when we face it together. Cheers.